Welcome to the Enchoris podcast, a podcast that tries to shine some light on what's happening in Germany and today the Netherlands in the cultural sector, trying to see cultural management as a practice where interesting things happen and creative people try to create new situations with limitations, whether monetary or with limited personnel. It's always a way that art and managing art is a challenge that we try to get to a point where we have beautiful results. Our guest today is Josef Fuchs. Thank you for coming, Josef.
Thank you for having me.
And we have the privilege of having someone who has been on stages as an artist and a singer, and who today has started a consultancy helping young musicians find their way through the industry and themselves. And we're going to talk about the journey from being an artist to being there for artists in different capacities. He's also the casting director of the Reise Opera in the Netherlands. But we're going to focus on his capacity as a consultant, coach, and supporter of artists. And in that process, I hope that we can talk a little bit about how administration and cultural management should be done, and where art and commerce and business and politics mix. And we're going to try to see how the journey of an artist from stage and through the end of a life cycle and a transition to new ways of contributing to art or the community and society. So I've said enough. So thank you again for coming. And I would like to ask you, where did your journey with music start?
Yes, so I am from Austria originally, and it's interesting that when you grew up, you always want to leave your nest, so to say. You want to get out of your comfort zone, and I remember there was a moment when I really detached from folk music in Austria, etc. Maybe it's quite normal to do so. But I grew up on a farm, and so there was music. My uncle played the guitar. We also had guests there, and so it was the farm of my uncle and my aunt. And I remember very clearly that I was just so fascinated when he was playing for the guests after a long day of work. And he enjoyed it himself very much. He was telling jokes. He was playing some funny songs. We were in this Stube, next to a fireplace, etc. And people were fascinated, and I was very fascinated by this energy of like this solo performer, capturing the moment, entertaining, and creating something on the spot with, I think, from a science point, you would call it also dirty play, because it was definitely not studio quality, but it was just fascinating. Something resonated in me, and I think that was kind of a starting point as well. My twin brother and me, we were quite good boy sopranos, had really good ears, and we were singing all kind of songs, also being used or abused to perform for the before our guests. But this was kind of the starting point, I would say. And then later on, singing in choirs a little bit in school, etc., performing in some theaters, etc. But music was always part of my life. I would even say making sound. That was the most important for me. On that farm where animal sounds, I was imitating a lot. So whereas I love copying in a good way, so this was kind of my starting point when I zoomed into other creatures and reproduce the sound. So this was kind of my soundscape, farm, land, and sitting on a high tree, which was my safe place back then. And I just absorbed everything around me, sound-wise, a lot.
I can relate. I knew we both came from Austria, but I actually spent the first years of my life in a farm in Austria as well. So I know exactly what you mean. And for anybody who hasn't been in Austria, it's so much open space and silence that sound is very obvious. For lack of better explanation, you're very aware of when sound is there. And I never thought about this before this moment, but you see, it's funny what you have in common with people. So I can completely relate to both connection to sound and the landscape and the communal aspect of music in Austria, because it's one of the places where folk music and classical music are technically the same. And it's the same origin, so it was always meant as a communal, inclusive experience without the elitism of the way we classify things today intellectually, but it was always a communal thing. And what you describe is exactly the connection also that's very Austrian, singing, connecting, dancing, which is inevitably an important part of the heritage of what became classical music.
Yeah.
So very, very interesting beginning. And I didn't know you have a twin. And I guess that defines a lot about performing as a duo for the first part of your life, right?
Yes. It's so interesting when you hear similar voices around you. Also, I mean, even nowadays, I mean, sure, I took the path of being connected with music and had a private singing education, which I paid for myself during my studies in Salzburg. And so I trained that instrument for, what it's worth, to become kind of the best version of that. Well, not that I was very successful maybe, but however, we can talk about what's success. But my brother took another route as mechanical engineer. So it's interesting for me to see, since we have very similar bodies, although we're not identical twins, but it's very interesting to see for me what this instrument, which other route it can take, and how his voice sounds now. Because we, even when I talk to him on the phone or he leaves me a voice message, I hear so much of my voice in that, in some intonation. Obviously, it's since it's the same framework, so to say, that's so interesting for me. But back then, when we were boy sopranos, it was so similar. And this is just fun to make music with someone where you don't need a lot of words. My uncle always said, it's so interesting how you communicate because you don't even finish your sentences. Do you realize? And you still get each other.
That's such a beautiful, unique thing when you have a soul and a body that you're so connected to, a sibling that is a unique, different person, but you have so much in common. I've met people and was very close to people who had twins, and it always fascinated me. I had never thought of how that could have affected singing, because you have someone who sings with a similar timbre like you. There's a famous trend at the moment, like the Oasis brothers, where the joke is that you can never have a band with two siblings singing harmony that anybody can copy, because there's enough vocal similarity and differences to make something unique. And with twins, it's, I guess, a step further.
Yeah, I would agree. I remember that that was a special surrounding I found on the farm, even where the focus was not so much on the music even. But I was singing songs later on. I was singing classical songs and countertenor arias all while driving the tractor, which was a funny picture for me now, looking back, as in like worlds clashing in a certain way, which was very interesting. I love contrast. And when we were really young, we went also to this big, what is it, like it's a big fuss, so where you put the urines of the cows in to fertilize the fields, right? And when that's empty, it's a fabulous acoustic instrument when you sing into this.
That's called a reverb tank.
Yes,
in
a reverb tank. And we loved to go there, and it was just playing around with our non-existent studio. So
that's the early reflections that a tank or silos are used for that.
Silos.
That really enhances the way someone listens to his voice. Like that's why people love singing in cathedrals and
bathrooms,
and even opera houses have that, so that the singers can reflect on their voice in a very big room. So it's a beautiful psychoacoustic effect. So you started young with engineering and sound. It's really interesting how someone in young age can work with perception and having two voices. Today, inevitably, we're going to talk a lot about the voice as an instrument and expression and self-discovery, since that's a big part of your journey. And this is a complete surprise, because I never thought what the effect is of two twins, listening to each other's voices and actually learning, co-learning. It's a unique thing for people who are listening to this. You hear yourself with a slightly different tone than what others people do. That has to do with the fact that our skull resonates and the electric signal gets affected. So, but when you hear someone else who has an identical voice to you, you can learn something about yourself.
Yeah.
And I never thought of that before. This is such a unique thing to happen to someone.
Yeah, I mean, now I always feel that I really pressure to have siblings. I also have a older sister. She's 6 years older, and she's more the psychologist in our family, I would say. So she is very intelligent to ask the right questions, so to say. And obviously, 6 years being older, she started questioning our past earlier. So this is also wonderful to look back with siblings, because we are on the same level in the family as talking systemic. And this is really precious. But with my brother, it's also in a different way because of that voice situation, and also maybe similar approach or perception of life in a way, even though we're very different people. But it's still interesting to see him see life different than I do.
And when did you make the step to go into singing more as a discovery or as a profession? Or
this was coincidentally in a certain way. I went to Salzburg to study biology, which I started to do, to become a zoologist, and ethnology, so behavior science of animals, which I didn't choose any certain animal. Well, like Jane Goodall having the gorillas. So I didn't know which animal I would choose. And at the end, maybe I chose then the animal singer later on to study. And I met so many people in Salzburg from the cultural environment and from the Salzburg Festival. And they just captured me in a way, because you always attract the people who resonate with the same things. And we went out, had good talks, and we drank some wine at home, obviously. And then there was a piano, and we just said, like, hey, let's sing something. And it was also kind of classic stuff. We touched a lot, Dichterliebe and stuff like that. And it was a funny foreign world for me. And it was I still see opera very artificial in a certain way, by sound making, so to say. And it fascinated me a lot, because it brought me back to me copying animals. And then there was a new world I could kind of copy or see what that does to me.
You found a new language to discover,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. And interesting enough, because of it being so artificial in a certain way, I went not to the baritone, but to the countertenor.
Okay, for people who are listening, countertenor is a very high-pitched
male voice.
So you would recognize it instantly. Very interesting that and people assume when you come from Austria that we all grew up with classical music, but it's a journey there.
Yes.
I have that in my family as well, that feeling. So today's episode will be really interesting for my family as well, because we have similar stories. I grew up partially in Styria before I went to Greece, and you lived in Tirol. So it's interesting also for the mythology of the place when it comes to classical music, to see that an Austrian singer, it took him going to college to discover that he wants to sing, which is kind of surprising.
Often when I introduce myself to some groups which I coach or whatever I do with these groups, then I often introduce myself saying, like, well, I didn't come from a music family in that sense. Surely my uncle, yes, but the rest, not so much interested in me. Sure, we listened to music maybe. I loved watching TV, because this was kind of the window to the world from this small town where I grew up, Kitzbühel in Tirol, with 8,000 people. So, obviously there was a music school, but for the rest, we worked a lot on the farm. That was it. And so I was not from this family. My father's a conductor and my mother plays the first violin. This was far away. And so actually I only touched this world when I was 18, 19.
complete late bloomer, like you.
Complete, yeah.
Someone would say in the industry. And that's also really in our times, everything has to be so perfect and you have to win those young artist competitions. I think it must be really refreshing for your students or the people you coach that, no, you can have a unique path and not everything is based on your bio.
That's exactly the core of my message, I would say. Nobody can tell you how your way has to look like. You are walking it the very first time. And we are so fascinated by all these stories of exceptional people and not the ones that are always walking exactly the same way and repeat everything. So I want to stimulate that because it took me quite a while for myself to accept that of not being a typical, I don't know, story, narrative of like, I always wanted to be a doctor when I was 6 and now I'm a fabulous doctor. There's nothing wrong with this narrative, don't get me wrong. No. But it's just great to not fit any mold, but to really discover who you are. And based on that gut feeling, as I would call it, because we're very often in our heads, rationalizing what our paths should look like. And we forget about to truly listen to our heart and gut feeling.
So basically, the reminder is that people who are authentic have their own unique path, and an industry will always try to standardize processes and get people young into the game. There's a beautiful analysis of the recording industry who started to have this obsession with youth in the 80s, where they fired, for example, all the country singers like Johnny Cash and got young people who were 18 or 20 because they knew they could make more money and it's more relatable. A further step of that logic is the reality TV logic where you could be the star. So you could see how that happens. And what you describe here is that someone can still start a career at 20.
Of course, everything is possible, and it also depends on what do we want to get out of that. I mean, I would even now, looking back, I wouldn't even call myself a singer. I know that I'm a performer, and I used vocal elements. And if I was like, for fun, if I would go back to the stage, maybe I would be like a cabaret guy or something, using some music elements as persiflage or making jokes about opera, maybe even more than
you saw
else.
That you told the story of your uncle playing guitar. So the social showmanship, communal aspect is important and not necessarily showmanship in a strict form, right?
Yes, not virtuosity, not big stages. That's not what I ever longed for. It was more, I think, to give myself the permission to do something where my heart is involved and reach people.
Communication.
Yeah.
And connection.
Yeah.
What we most don't accept that we all want.
Absolutely.
That is so true. And this brings me to an interesting paradox. You've been in the position of being a casting director. And based on what you say, the first thing that came up while you were talking was like, okay, people have a chance if they're themselves.
Yes.
And
I think that's the future of this performing art, definitely anyways. The industry itself is so pushy in a hyper focus of your vocal cords. You study for many, many years to perfect that little tiny part in your body. Sure, it takes more than only the vocal cords training. And where it's necessary to train for many years, I would still hope for well, as they say I think in a Japanese saying, I've read that at some point, train, like get hard, get harder, get soft. That's the main goal. And by softness is also accepting us who we are and really understand the personal quality we have. And only if we can align and connect that, then I think it's interesting, the artmanship, what you can do with your voice, and because the quality of the voice is maybe 10% of your career or path or success, I would say. In an audition, I'm not so much interested in perfect notes everywhere, but risk-taking. I want to feel the person. And I always speak with the singers I coach about make a split, make a conscious split. Like you are not as a private person on stage or doing the audition. It's your artistic persona. But it's not enough if the artistic persona is refined as in beautiful voice, nice dress, whatever. It needs to be fed by the private person.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Let's talk auditions. This is really interesting. It's people hate the subject.
Yeah.
From a neuroscience perspective, public speaking and auditions are real pain.
Yes.
Our brain has been wired to be afraid of it to death because it means rejection from the tribe.
Yes.
And
it's also being alone, whereas we are tribe people, and then you're alone, separated.
I think it's a lot like the rituals in tribes where you put a young person through a test in front of the collective experience.
Yeah, okay.
And like every test, it can become an abusive situation. It can become a learning situation. It won't be an easy one. It's a lot about how we approach a necessary process. Like you have to choose a singer for something. And in a perfect world, it would be the most competent, meaningful person for the job. Or another question would be, or the person that fits the ensemble better to tell a story. There's many ways to go at it. But we needed some sort of selection process. So what people might hear from you is like, be authentic, be yourself, take risks. But there's also the other side where people have to comply to a norm, sing this aria like someone else, copy the recording, be yourself but be like someone else. So what I mean is like that your advice is, in my personal opinion, exactly how it should be. And art institutions should keep an open ear and an open mind for true artists and not people who are trained in a specific way to satisfy perception.
Yes, I definitely agree. Don't close your mind off. I mean, sure, you study often alone at home, but be interested in what's happening out there. A bit like look for this effect of my uncle in that sense. Just I was there in a moment I was really inspired. So go there and look for your inspiration. That's not fully copying something because at the end you have to do the audition. But I really want people also to understand that, well, if you're in the right house and in the right spot, we want you to succeed. The panel. I always try to really create a very informal situation, although obviously it's not because it's a business situation. But you can still choose to make it as comfortable as possible in a way. One factor is the time. Like I'm against, I kind of stay away from standard auditions of like you go in, 2 arias, goodbye, we might call you. I do work sessions, so it has already a different terminology, which people kind of know about a little bit, but it's really working, it's exchange. Nobody can stay nervous for 20 minutes, I believe. I get to really know them. We have space to have a honest artistic dialogue about things, about score, about a certain approach, about what is really important also is the concept of the stage director and the conductor. So if we share our ideas, we can try to sing the aria once more with a new idea, so the singer gets the chance to get closer to what we're actually looking for.
So you give them an opportunity to actually work in a real situation, adjust, and not simply fluff their feathers, create a 30-minute dopamine kick, or fail terribly just because they want to conform. For me, it's always hard for people to try to fit the needs of something that is not specifically described.
Yes, exactly.
So how are you going to succeed when it's such an abstract goal setting? What do you want from me? So
exactly. I give usually the advice for the singers also, like, everything is a relation. If it's a love relation or a work relation, everything is a relation. And it has very similar rules. And I would also believe that don't be with your thoughts on the other side. As in, what are they looking for? Why is my partner not calling me? Blah, blah, blah. All this. you are in the world of assumptions and being suspicious or whatnot. It's really energy waste most of the time. It's the only thing you can take care of is your stuff. So your offer. I think you should really stay as an artist in the offer, work on that everything is really well prepared. That's it. Do the things you like, where you feel happy about in terms of repertoire choice, etc. And for the rest, you don't know if they look for a blonde and you a brunette or all kind of other details. But it shouldn't be of your concern in a certain way.
One of the main reasons I invited you was that I wanted someone who works with the artistic side of things in business administration, having been an artist and still being one. It's just about how you describe yourself. And the important part for me was that to remind people in cultural management or in administration of theaters that we are talking about a really artistic process and not necessarily what agents or the industry wants to highlight, but we have the social responsibility to create a socially meaningful product in the form of performance that provides something to the local community, just like your uncle did in a barn. That it cannot be a sterilized, detached art piece, but it needs to have social value. And we need to bring the people in authentically.
Yes. I think it's also, we cannot produce this value if we don't find it within the group. And I've come to the realization that I love casting, but I use it as my tool, because what I'm at my core also is a team builder. So I really love to scan people and profiling people, but not as, there is a judging element maybe in there, but the judging is not connected to my taste, as in I like him and I don't like her, but it's connected to the concept. So I try to keep my process extremely clean, so staying away from my taste. I mean, sure, it is somewhere there, but maybe, I don't know, 10%. And it's really being the servant to a concept, to what we want, to create something. And based on that, we will make as a group the decision what works, and usually also who will work together. Because that will create a very strong how we do things. And that is what really transcends on stage to the bigger group, because what happens in the small group is the same like happens in the big group.
I think I'm going to make a statement which is breaking the form of doing a podcast here.
Okay.
But the first thought that came to mind was that this shows very clearly how artistic integrity leads to ethical decision making. Because if you focus on making a production with a certain goal set or aesthetic, and you pick the people, it's like cooking. You choose the ingredients that serve the recipe.
Yep.
Outside politics, notoriety, how famous someone is.
Yes.
And you just try to make something meaningful, then you have also a very, very clear goal setting. And it doesn't become this corrupt process of why is it what it is. With this almost religious, someone has to be perfect to fit into a cast, which is very classical music, that it's the pilgrimage to being exceptional and not simply a group of people making a meaningful social experience in the form of art.
I love to also being surprised. So not knowing the result, but knowing what we kind of want to achieve, but not as in specifically which kind of pasta sauce, new pasta sauce we want to create. And I'm not going for the tomatoes are coming from the strongest brand, as you described in a certain way, but the ones where we really feel that this will be the best item and for the recipe, what we want. But we also find in these work sessions, I think I go in there with a very open approach, as in, let's see. Because obviously singers and artists and performers bring so much to the table, where it's really wonderful to maybe sometimes go through a different door at the end. Like, wow, we thought we want this, but she, brought so much different things to the table. But which fits to the narrative and the overall ensemble of people in a better way.
there's also an extreme luxury that at the moment there are so many people who are so talented, so well trained, well educated. I don't think there was ever a point in history where you had so many talented people on such a level. So it becomes also a very hard thing, because some of the people who don't make it today in the industry would be stars 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But that's the nature of progress, inevitably.
Yes.
And
but there comes the plan B. We always talk about the plan B in the coaching, and I love to shock people if they are shocked. Some are not anymore, because after Corona you're not maybe shocked anyways about that. It's a good idea to have more legs on the ground. And who knows, I mean, look at my path. I had all my kind of jobs, really. I was an agent in Vienna, then after 10 years of Salzburg Festival, working in all kind of positions, also on stage, but not only. I was always interested in everything. I call it the tapas life. I want to feed myself with all kind of different flavors, and that in this way I keep it rich and keep it curious. But there is always more than one. I think it's a lie also of the industry, maybe, and the world itself, of this kind of professions and boxes, and we have the vocal box, the voice type, which can be so narrowing, and a lot of people have problems. I coincidentally at the Wiener Burgtheater, the Sprechtheater, I ended up there, funny enough, and they composed for me. What a luxury! So I sang bass 2, which is low. I have the notes but not the color, up to countertenor, tenor 2. In musical settings, I had all formats. I had my tapas, actually, and I have really my tapas situation in the Wiener Burgtheater for 5 years, singing all kind of different projects. And this is also kind of visualization of what I really want. And I got it, but okay, I didn't get the big singing career. So I always try to, stimulate the singers also to not have this end wish of, I want to sing at the Met. I think it's super boring, and it's really nothing against the Metropolitan Opera,
It's one of the ways. It's one of the paths. But
yes.
It's the equivalent of saying, I want to be first at the Olympics.
Yeah.
It's honorable. It needs a lot of work and talent, but it's not better than being a fantastic singer doing something somewhere else.
And it doesn't take away that everyone that didn't win did also work really hard, showed its best, and maybe will get different goals out of it,
May I ask you something? In the preparation for this talk, I thought a lot about athletes. Mm-hmm. And when athletes quit their careers, it's usually in their early 30s. Mm-hmm. It's called the first death, because they have to give up their training routine, their goal setting, their dreams. And even if they get the medals and they're the first in the world, they're not rich. Sponsorships don't pay as much as you think. And if you know anybody who went to the Olympics, very often a whole family is working or paying so someone can have the training and the resources. And even if the state or sponsor step in, that's not necessarily a life that leads to millions. Mm-hmm. So I think I wanted to talk between the similarity of the life cycle of a singer.
Yeah.
Because I think people think I'm going to work forever. And I think having a 20-year career is incredible.
Yeah.
And some people will have it from 20 to 40, some people from 30 to 50, some people from 40 to 60.
Yeah.
And I think that's very unpopular in a direction. Like if you didn't win any young artist program in your life, you don't have a future.
But there is also a kind of, myth, and it's also a reality. Some people only have a singing competition career and nothing else. They only win one competition after the other, never really entered the stage, and that was their life. So there are many parallel realities, so to say. And, I would really wish that we just follow a natural, organic growth and have a very good awareness of where we are in our development as person. Again, the person has to feed, and this personal development has to feed the artistic persona. And so some people are late bloomers like myself. So then it's already too late. I cannot become a child star anymore. I would say. So that's very relaxing for me. And to say so, everyone has a different starting point, and it's also connected to your voice, which is so much connected to your body as well. And the voice type, if we want to talk about, there's all these bases will never have a very early career. They need some time to develop. For some dramatic voices, it will be also later, that the voice is really developed, etc. So, I don't know, in this, when's the right moment? You have to listen to your body and the organic development. And the plan B can be so useful to not staying in in a kind of waiting position when it's finally my turn. No, do something with your life. You can be a maker. You can work outside of the opera if that feeds into more creativity. I love my garden. Next to the side, so many singers are wonderful cooks or something. They use their senses in a different way. Life is more than only singing. And anyway, opera is not my life. It's part of my life. And I try to teach that a lot, a healthy distance.
That's very important, because people, in general in the arts, there's an obsession that is almost like a religious obsession. I have to pray until I'm enlightened.
Yeah.
So and there's the paradox of the myth where you find the door of God and then you run away because the search was more important than the answer.
Yeah. Or also this thing when people say, "No, I want to die on stage." Okay, fine. It's not our choice, I guess, anyways. But it seems so honorable where, I don't know, I cannot fully connect to that, I would say, because I just love to talk to people who are very broad-minded and see all kind of futures for themselves and not completely hooked to one idea only.
I think it's a chase for fitting into archetypes of perfection, like you have to be as dramatic as Maria Callas, or you have to be as social as Pavarotti. And those people were unique. Their circumstances were unique.
Yes.
Their path is crazy. Very often they didn't fit any standard, and then they become a standard for people to copy a narrative.
Their career was connected to what we are sitting now, to studios, to the Schallplatten, the LPs. They just came out. That this was the medium that was invented at a time or had a big breakthrough. That was the source of and the big boost for these kind of Karajan and Callas, and this time was connected to the media development.
Even things like vibrato from the 30s comes from the speed of how vinyl was spinning. That singing was influenced by technology, because people listen to a recording, they copied it, and because the record spins at a certain speed, there's more vibrato than the voice would have. It's very similar to how DJs remix soul music, and then the beats simulate, and then bands start being inspired by recorded music. I think recorded music, even we had the joke while sound checking for this podcast that a singer that moves closer to the mic experiences a low frequency. So all those techniques were used on records. They defined popular perception, and people sing then in a bar like this. So it's the mix of technology influencing singing, exactly like you copy nature, in a way, like you copy birds or sounds. It goes back to the way our neuroscience works. I think what you're describing about an artist accepting himself uniquely is equally important for the people who work in artist administration. We need equally open-minded teams, creative teams. Very often the salaries in the arts administration are not fitting the talent and skill set of people there, because it's not a business making millions, it's a public service. So what would you take from your coaching to singers into administration?
Well, definitely this part of that we should not force people to fit a mold or something, because it's often the case. I see it a lot with my colleagues that they are looking for some kind of, well, what I really see is actually, and I tell this to singers as well, we need on the on our side, we also need help to find something, it's not that the panel knows, or it's not that the artistic team knows exactly what they want. That's not the case. I mean, they prepare, they think they know, etc. But everyone feeds into the other one. It's a teamwork. That's what I love about opera. It's very interdisciplinary, and it's a real teamwork. So I think we should really also allow that. And I'm very, actually I want to kind of get away from the hierarchy as much as possible, if that's possible. And if people allow that, and I think that's what I would like to invite the administration side to change a certain mindset of this. People need to fit a certain Fach or repertoire, and also maybe even the repertoire houses, which are in Germany, big. I think that there it's even more that if you look for a certain mezzo who fits the house, I mean, I get it somehow that you have a certain culture in a house, maybe, and that I get this point a lot, maybe, to say, like, we are a certain team, and we really click with this kind of people. I do that for the Rise Opera as well. I even call it like, well, I think this person is Rise Opera material, and I mean it in the best way, and not as objective as it sounds.
That is standard procedure in normal businesses, that HR is looking for someone who fits the culture of an institution by design.
Oh, what we need. I mean, sure, I really try to keep out extra drama as an attention seekers. I mean, sure, I'm kind of deaf on that ear. When I was the head of production also, we had some people who were kind of feeding into their inner child and asking for the fifth ice cream, and I just don't listen, but then they calm down, because it's also if you don't play along, which is often the case when I call it also when people come in on the red carpet, not a good idea. It feeds a wrong part of the personality, and we stray away from the real goal, and we should all be focused on the production. I think that's a very good attitude, because then you don't feed into your personal emotions, and obviously they are always there, etc. We don't feed so much in group dynamics. It's if we all have the goal and push on the same rope as we want to have the best premiere ever, that's the best goal, I find. And but then it's really teamwork, and I think I got lost a little bit, so help me back on track.
That's the idea of a format like that, like a podcast that I think that scattered thoughts kind of create a cloud of understanding how someone thinks and someone feels. So, for example, what you described for me, the first thing I thought about is that, in my personal opinion, theater has gotten lost in the society of spectacle, to go back to May 67, and it is a cultural offering to society to heal it. In my opinion, and we don't need more narcissistic people craving attention on a red carpet. And here I want to jump to a very, very tricky part of how art is done today, social media. So the stage becomes the screen and not the real stage very often, especially for individual singers or... So where is the balance, authenticity-wise, between promoting yourself and basically undermining your art and yourself publicly?
Interesting enough. So far in the coaching sessions, I mean, I don't know, obviously, a certain answer. I don't have the truth. Why would I? I love saying I don't know nothing. That makes me a good coach, I think. Because I'm a servant to my client, and I offer honest dialogue. That's what I do, and we talk about it. So social media, do you want to do that? Do you do it already? How do you do it? How does that feel? That's the most important thing for me, because if it's not connected to how you feel, then we have a problem already. And for myself, I decided to not promote myself too much on social media, because it doesn't feel good at all. So why would I do it? I mean, my gut feeling, I trust it completely, or my intuition. And so we talk with singers about, I talk with singers about that social media aspect, and often they say like, well, it's such a burden, it feels so bad, I always feel the pressure to do it. So I said, don't. Find a different way. Find a way that works for you, and if that's like I don't do zero, then try it out, because maybe you stand out of the crowd by not doing it and following it. I mean, nobody can tell. It's not a must to join, because people feel a lot pressure, like I have to. And I think, like, I don't know, make your own rules. Try, be really daring. A friend of mine, she said, it was like, but if the door is closed, the singer said, she said, then create your own window. You know, you use your imagination and power. And I also say to the singers, well, interesting enough, with the social media, we have maybe a very clean CV, we have a stylish website. Great, if that feels all good for you. But on the Instagram, I want to have the chance to get more private information even about you, and not like seeing photos of parties and all that, but not the stylish side.
What I think is important is text. I think even the platforms reinforce posts that have a lot of written content authentically, not with AI or generative AI. I think a big part of a person's consciousness is visible through his writing. And not everybody should be a good writer, but I'm talking about being authentic.
Yeah.
And the challenge is for artists today is that not everybody has a talent for visual art.
Yeah.
Not everybody. There's very talented singers who don't have an eye for it. Or you can't copy the campaign a theater does on your own.
But also, if you copy, there's no value in it. In that sense, that why should we have content double out there? Sure that you will also reshare content of you. I mean, that's all very understandable. But that, I mean, you feed into that what I said, and okay, I want different sides. I want other information. If it's written, great. I mean, I also always try to stimulate singers, because it's singers, especially singers really, but also artists in general, maybe we are dependent on certain feedback. You need your sound guy to how do I sound. We need the assistant conductor giving feedback. What's the balance in the room? That's also can be a very lovely relationship. Actually, it should be really based on trust, obviously, and wanting the same thing. A really great premiere, but I really want to stimulate singers when I see on the website that they again post all the reviews. I think like, well, another voice that talks about you. Where's your own voice and written in, this is my statement. I want to see that. Why did I choose that job? You can be as crazy or cultivated as you want, but why not put a quote from you on the website and not this and this journalist finds my voice great.
So basically you're looking for authentic people, you're looking for the artist behind the persona that has to put a CV out for people.
Yes, I want to really empower artists to not think in the old style way of, well, what can I do? I train and then I have to wait for an engagement. And when I'm in the process and the production, I'm the last thing that's important because everyone else, is telling me what to do.
I'm going to ask you a challenging question.
Okay.
Has your feedback put some of the singers in trouble in some more conservative houses or places? Because I obviously find your approach really meaningful, and for me, artists should move on and become a more integrated and holistic type of contributor to society. But how does this work with conformity in the end?
I love that the feedback is a lot, that they feel so much less pressure on their shoulders, that they really feel that they can allow themselves to be who they are, etc. And that's all I want, a little bit more feeling of freedom and autonomy. And I think this can already, if you take that with you in a certain room, doesn't mean immediately that you will talk against everything a stage director will tell you. I don't believe in that. That everyone will say, she must be working with Josef Fuchs because she's so cheeky or something. I doubt that. I just think it's an energy thing as well, and that you just feel that. You might just even in a hierarchy moment maybe can keep a little bit more distance to that and don't take it personal, by allowing yourself to say like, well, I know my value and I know which kind of artist I am.
So basically, you think that what you're suggesting to people empowers them in a way that is constructive in any context because they're more of themselves. So even if they get rejected, it can be graceful. If they have to face hierarchy, it's more with standing and attitude.
Yes. By two things, being more professional in a certain way, see through the structure, and being not too much on the other side. Again, like, oh, why is this director treating me like, no. What is what I need? What is it? Go back to yourself. Always just go back to your own needs. And also, again, by not taking it so serious and not making it the world. Mm-hmm. And just, maybe think about the plan B. Okay, fine. If, maybe you think already about your next hobby or something, or something that really feeds you as person. And yeah, so by distancing, giving it the space that it really deserves and the place in your life.
I think it's really interesting I imagine someone who's a young singer being really challenged by what you're saying or me agreeing to it, because there's so much advice out there on how to do things, and it's the same thing when you do an exam in engineering school. You're confronted with your limits, with your ego, with your own wishes. It's never easy, but it's a lot about authenticity and how you navigate the process. So I think those things are very hard to teach and communicate. And this is part of why I think it's equally important, now that we're talking here in a context of cultural management, that people who work in administration go back and rethink those processes. When was the time where I auditioned for a job?
Yes.
Where I got feedback that I didn't like, where I was the person who wasn't selected for something. So going back to all that is really important for all of us.
Absolutely. I mean, really good feedback culture is really crucial, and I'm constantly fine-tuning this process. I mean, I try to always make extra time. I just yesterday talked to a singer. She was coincidentally in the area. I said, come over, we sat for a whole hour. I make time. This is respect. And by this, she got a no with the last work session. Okay, it was between two singers. So there you go. It's also, I took her through the whole process of how we came to the decision. It was not even her intent to really only fully understand that. She just wanted time to talk, a good dialogue. She wanted to grow. She's honestly interested in growing, but not like, what should I do next time? Not this kind of, talk, but just time, understanding the process, knowing how we work, because that's just interesting also, and it will calm you down, understanding why we're doing work sessions, etc. And I always also say, my no is a yes from another house. You just have to find it. Okay, that's one side. But as you say, I mean, I think I really want to treat everyone extremely with respect and not as, as vocal material or something like that.
No, this is transparency, though. You provide a context. Like, this is my logic. This is my decision-making process. Yes. This is my criteria. And in the end, unfortunately, this is my decision.
Of course. Although I must say, I never say unfortunately, because that would be patronizing, and also that would me thinking, being able to zoom out from the whole system and looking from above, like God or whoever, and thinking I know it all. I don't know what this experience will cause to the singer, as in a very good and whatever other aspect they're taking with them. But I try to be extremely secure also with my choices of words, and also in the written way. But I'd rather have them live, because I really want to interact.
I only had a similar experience with this from my music making career, when you provide a label or someone else material. And for anybody out there, even in the years the record business was blooming, you rarely get an answer. And one of the reasons is that people want something to be their own discovery, their own choice. So after this talk, I reflected from the perspective, like, if you think too much from the perspective of the decision maker, it gets in your way.
Absolutely.
So I think this is really helpful, even for people who apply for a job and lose it. You live with the consequences, the stress, rent, all the problems. So I don't think people should assume that everybody's privileged or that it's easy. But it's, on the one side, a personal journey to becoming a professional and a journey to find out yourself in life at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think it's interesting for people to see what a process someone can have. A different theater or a different context might have completely different criteria.
Absolutely.
So
that's why we will never fully understand the context. People are not aware of the context themselves, even so. Not everyone can explain what they are looking for or what the process is. I would rather encourage all people in this business or in any business to have a very strong network around them. People of the mix of friends, family, and other coaches or mentors, specialists of physiologists or doctors and medicals and holistic people, etc. Whatever you really need. These are the people where you fine-tune your preparation and your offer, and that's all. The rest is up to fate, I find.
Very interesting. I had the experience of, we did a workshop a few years ago where we tried to highlight how many people work for a solo person doing this job.
Yeah.
And it started as a joke, like a hairdresser, the person doing your makeup, your costume, your shoes, the person who's managing your finances, the person who's doing your PR, your photographer.
Yes. Yeah.
So we confronted solo artists with the fact that they mentioned 10 people they work with, and that's not including their vocal coach, their vocal doctor, the choreographer they work with. So I think it's very hard for people. I was in a workshop with the late Pierre Boulet in the Orchesterzentrum in Dortmund, and he was talking that we're training people to be soloists and play in an ensemble. And yes, we need to get the best soloists out of the team, but what about playing with the team, listening? And a few years ago, the team behind Enchoris made a movie for an ensemble that plays jazz in Dortmund. It's called the Dorf Collective. And they started by, their payment was a soup in the beginning. And the film was about the journey of that soup from one city to another. But what I was going to get to is that it was an improvising orchestra for jazz. And it was about people committing to the score and taking the responsibility, and the conductor just coordinating the chaos. So it's a lot about taking the responsibility about your own expression, self-promotion, your own business, and actually committing to who you are on stage and off stage. Yeah. So I know this topic is very, very personal. And anybody who's been through a job interview can relate, even if you haven't had an artistic career. You sit just like we are sitting here across from each other. And I think the important part is to see, can we make this work? Is there any meaning to this? And just like a conversation, even if we're not following a concrete path, can we provide value to each other, to the people listening, to the people who might read it? So I think people want acceptance more than they want the collaboration. By nature, we all do.
Yeah.
Without judging it.
Yes. That's why I find all these elements of, and even I teach it a lot as in hey, how do you write a CV and stuff, that hard fact stuff. But still in every audition process, even if it's also finding a new colleague for a position, etc. I mean, for me, the most important thing, and I see it while being in that room, that people want this connection and really feel like, could this person fit in the team? As in, do we want to work with him or her every day, and not so much also what does the CV say. Great, that's one side, but it's the person, it's the personal connection.
I think also in the last 20 years, society has been moving on more into making things that are intellectual property, like software, music. So, and it's clear that companies have become really open to a culture that sustains personal development, growth, discovery, team building, and especially in forms like, for those out there who have no contact to software development, very often people write something together and they cannot claim a specific part of it. So it's really deep co-creation, just like a choir sings together. And in times of farming, that would sound like an abstraction, but still there's 20 people working on a field creating a result in the same way you would program drones today. And that's the engineering we're talking now about, kind of like a perspective from above. But I think we should really rediscover the beauty of working together. And being a good soloist, in my opinion, is just I have my moment where I take more responsibility. I go to the front and the spotlight, but I'm part of a team.
Yes.
And celebrity and has put people in a position where they perform being the star instead of performing a role. And I think that stands in the way of true expression, even if you see that in...
Absolutely. I find the really best people I've seen over this almost 30 years I'm in the business. I mean, I always add 2 years because I didn't start with 16 but 18, but we'll get there soon. But I've really seen a lot, I would say, and the best ones are the easiest ones, and they understand that game very good. Of not, well, you go out, you do your thing, but then you completely immediately integrate into the group again and not creating some special position for yourself. That I always admired a lot to see that.
To go back to ethnography, what you said earlier, just like birds, they change the leader and they fly distances that are impossible for airplanes to fly, because it's a formation, or how animals navigate coexisting. And I think humanity has gotten a lot into the power game, and that's very logical post-colonialism and thousands of years of wars. But it's really important that art kind of puts, in my view at least, gives a good example of, hey, things can be done differently. And lack of hierarchy does not mean lack of leadership or responsibility.
Absolutely.
It actually requires more participation, more ownership.
Yes.
And democracy has the same problem. So I don't think anything can heal it if not volunteering or music, or even something we talked about before this interview, like gardening together.
Yeah.
Which is something I wanted to ask you. What can you bring from this side into collaboration?
Well, so on the farm also, I was, my brother was a bit more with my uncle. It just happened naturally. And I don't know, you can talk cliche about like me being gay and following my aunt to the kitchen, and my brother not being gay, and following my uncle to chop wood, cliche talking. Well, I don't even know. I don't need to reflect on that now, why this happened. But I did this split of like, I wanted to see how you cook fabulous. And it was highly inspiring for me. She was a fabulous cook, my aunt, and this typical old farmer's lady having thousands of recipes in her mind and not following the recipe, but just having everything in her hands already, like almost like a mama from Italy. But she also had the garden, and I took over that garden in a certain way. And I had my cats behind me, and so this was this perfect dream farm. Well, at least I remember it like that. And the garden was just wonderful because you had this space of creation. And I love about gardening that you have to understand to take care of something and to understand each plant's needs. Like this one is a semi-shadow plant, etc., nutrition, whatnot. And I think it really, I joined a community garden in Enchoris, which is also meeting so much different people I would maybe not meet in my regular bubble. So that was really wonderful. It's also great when you're an expat, socially connecting. But I really felt it helped me so much being a team leader for the time when I had big teams to lead at the Rice Opera, because it was natural for me to feel and see what my people need to thrive. Like, because I think leading means for me to being, first of all, part of the group and being hands-on. It's not like delegation 24/7, and it's being part of the group and to see the qualities and nourish this quality, but also challenging the people a little bit. And yeah, I think it helped me to have a good eye on who needs what.
That's very interesting. And gardening is also a very personal thing to people. You see their personality. And in the end, isn't that true about anything? Yes. Because if you see someone doing something he loves, you're going to find a lot of things about him, whether we're talking here or whether you're playing an instrument or whether you're woodworking. It's how we realize traits.
In the community garden, I love to see everyone has. We don't have this kind of community garden that we take care of one big field together. Also a nice concept, but we had different little fields. And sure, when I was gone in summer, somebody would give my plants water. You know, this was also the idea, obviously, that everyone could be away, and we felt a little bit responsibility for the rest. But it was just wonderful to see how people follow a different goal or just do a different, and it was very obvious, like everyone else did so much in this specific garden of like very keep it clean, you know, like the carrots next to the potatoes and etc. Very clean as you learn it in the vegetable gardens. And mine one is complete chaos in a good way. I love it. They called it farmer's garden because it's really wild, a little jungle, you know, because my work is so structured and I love it. But I love in the garden wilderness and just being in service to the beasts.
It's about balancing out our needs. I don't think anybody can show the same sides of his personality in all the things he does. And we have different sides that they need nurturing as well. It can only be productivity or all laziness. It's a hard balance. Shall we take a dark turn and talk about the challenges of this profession on a human and personal level? The first thing I wanted to talk to you about is due to my interest in and being a father, I've gone deep into how social media and mobbing works online. So I wanted to ask you, a theater is a closed system, just like the military is. Or how do you prepare your singers for things like mobbing or aggression or even harassment, sexual or other type? What are the right ways for someone to be prepared to handle all those things?
So, well, I came to the realization anyway that life is a jungle still. You know, we're still animals. It's still the same rules. So it's good to be aware and awake. I try to educate the singers, I think, in making them aware of which kind of options they have. Also, I think I would not go also and call myself a psychologist, which I'm not. I'm not trained in that, but I have my network, and there are more and more psychologists who also came from an artist background, which I recently met, a couple of colleagues of mine, when I did some coaching in Warsaw, which was so valuable also because of meeting these colleagues, because what I really feel is that the coaching community is really not like, no, I want to work with everyone and nobody should, you know, it's a lot about sharing, honest sharing, like what I see in your story, dear singer, is partly for me, I can help you there and there, but not on the psychological part of it. And sure, I really want to address, first of all, that I want to get out this idea and this illusion that we're still 50 years back, as in like the stage director is a semi-god and I cannot say no. You can say no if it feels wrong. You can also go to the company, because even if you would feel, well, the director of the company is best friends with the stage director, how can I win? Or how can I be open? Do I feel safe? Safety is really a big issue at the theaters in terms of we are obliged to, and we want it also. I mean, I hope all houses want want to create a really safe environment. So there are laws, etc. There are many houses have handbooks of like house rules, like a anti-screaming policy was established with many houses, and we talked about it in conferences of Opera Europe. So I share this kind of information. I also point there are sometimes links on Opera Europe websites. I really encourage the singers to have a look there. In the Netherlands, which I love, there is institution, it's called Kunsten 92. I think it was founded in that year, and they care a lot about fair practice, and it's covering all kind of areas, fair pay, etc., describing the laws, also helping by finding lawyers that are really specialized on that. Okay, there we're already past that, it already happened. What I also want to encourage is that solo performers don't feel as single entities, that they are a group, and they should help each other, and they should look for a collective power, and that they really should exchange experiences, because sometimes you're in your head think like, did I really experience that? Was it me? You know, so you need to also encourage the dialogue with the colleagues. And I also make sure don't go down the spiral as in only seeing the negative sides of the work field, and you know that I also have seen. But
that's why I asked you, because we're in a post-Me Too situation.
Yep.
And by saying post, I mean that there was a big explosion of awareness.
Yeah.
And also what's really triggering is that now abuse has different forms. People abuse each other on social media or on group chats.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a dynamic that the abuse does not stop at the theater if it happens. It's a very complicated situation. So for me, it's important to ask you what should a person know about himself in order to protect himself from the narratives of the industry?
Yes. Good question. I mean, I anyway, again, would encourage saying like it's only a job, so stay away from extra drama also. And feed your, I think what's very important is to feed your own natural sense for justice, and not fall into a made regulation of like, when this happens, you're a victim. You know, I mean, there's so much, really, it's so easy to become a victim these days, in your head also. I also really want to encourage to make a very clear distinction between uncomfortable and, you know, something tragic happened. And sure, it's not completely up to me to draw the line, but that they have to feel it again. Like, when was it really, for everyone it's a different line. But we can't immediately always open up the room to this was a certain thing. I'm immediately a victim, because it will not help you. It might feel like that in the beginning. I try to really, feel into that a lot. Like what's important, which fight do I choose to fight? These kind of things.
That's very important. But what I wanted to say to make that question more concrete, has opera changed since things like intimacy coordinators have been introduced?
Yes, I would say so. I also joined the sessions because I really want to understand, especially when then maybe a singer comes back and like, would complain maybe about a certain moment. Not that I'm only the first address for that. We have head of production, etc. But all of my colleagues can be in the first address. But I really feel that I think only the idea that there is a coordinator there, an intimacy coordinator, that the company made the effort to walk this extra step, helps the singers. That's what I get back.
It creates a boundary and a set of rules and supervision.
Yes.
So that's a step forward.
Absolutely. And when I joined these sessions, it was really also a lot about team building, about really understanding dynamics, group dynamics, how hard it is to say no, even to come to a no, because you want to work with the other. So that sometimes can work against you, that you want to be a collaborator, but you kind of sell your soul to this idea instead of like, yes, but my boundaries are.
And there's peer pressure because it has to be perfect and you have to convince everyone.
Yes.
And then there are things like what is real, what is method acting, what is just an expression of the story,
yes, and
in a
also
symbolism.
Some kind of, which I was really impressed because it was just a very simple thing, as in when you help, it also helps to create the distance to your job. And I guess everyone has different things, like, but she also, well, going home and maybe taking a shower, to get rid of some energies, which sounds maybe spiritual, but it helps. And she also said, this instructor, like, yes, but after a certain scene, because for your brain, it's always the same if it really happens or if it's imagined, which is really fascinating, right? But so it's good to do some cleansing. And she said, like, then imagine that you get out of a full bodysuit after such a scene to kind of stripe that off and energetically. And I found it really interesting mind games.
That is really interesting because even when you act, you experience a reality.
Yes.
And then you're challenged. I think that's a very challenging part of doing this job. And it can be very punishing to the mental health if there's no consciousness on how to navigate those things.
Yes, it can haunt you. And I think it's really important factor to not only have your physical advisor, but really some kind of psychology, psychological mentor. Yeah, I think that's anyway good for everyone. But I guess in these kind of jobs where you play really demanding parts, like killing mothers and whatnot, everyone has to see how they approach that. But I always thought about that, because I think when I would go back, I would even maybe, instead of studying singing, I think I would even maybe going down the actors path nowadays, as being curious about it. And that is really interesting. How long does a role stay with you?
So do you think in the future that theaters will have a more structured strategy for mental health for both their singers, staff, and orchestras?
In a way, I guess so. We saw it with the Royal Opera House Covent Garden in London. They did Festen, this feast from the movie, with this sexual abuse core of the narrative. And this was so fascinating at a small forum in Paris I joined from Opera Europe. And they talked about knowing that there was very harsh scenes, and they also knew that the stage director will be very direct with it. And the chorus, some chorus members really didn't feel comfortable about it, and other soloists maybe, but they already in the budgeting, so to say, of the whole production, they really took into account, like, wait a second, we will also need this and that and this, and a lot of talks and psychological people in the room and daily and options. And I find this was such a modern approach to really not just wait for some surprises, but to really
proactively.
Yes, and knowing that you really touch a way hotter iron here in a certain. And I think with a lot of contemporary pieces, we will face that also.
It's art isn't art society's effort to heal itself,
yes.
So it's going to bring the wounds to the surface.
Yes,
and I think we have to take really good care of the people involved. Even the staff.
Yes.
So I always think about people who run the backdrops, and they witness those things, and it's real. So it's not only the artist.
It's true.
And in theater and art and opera, we face some of the darkest stories of humanity. And I think it needs extra help. Very often singers don't have the training or the awareness that they need psychological support, or it seems like a weakness. And there's also this aspect of I'll push through it. So I think it's important in coaching that you understand that you have limits, and that you have a path and a history, and some of those stories will affect you personally.
Yes. It really comes back to this, what I really want from people is to really be, it sounds so plucked almost, but to really listen and be in connection, because our body will tell us sometimes in so fine nuances of like that it's a no. Learn even to understand the no of your body. Now I'm quoting my former colleague. She was the head of our planner, and she really, discovered this as well. Like, it's small things. Sometimes it's a small leaning back that your body really goes back. Sometimes it's your larynx rising up a little bit. Or it's fine things. You can train that by asking your body fake questions. And you hold a glass and you ask, like, is there a hammer? And you go on and you really train and train and train until you understand where it is in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can connect to that more.
So it basically, people...
Knowing your limits.
That's probably the toughest thing for any one of us. It's especially since we are living in a herd and in a society, understand your role within a group, within a subgroup, or as an individual is a very, very hard process, even the physical aspect of the body and the spirit.
But what can really motivate you, I find, is that we see it also in, in family structures and systemics. If I always felt like when I did a big jump in my development as understanding certain things or really facing my old demons, which I really encouraged by leaving Austria, actually, I knew they will follow me, and I knew it's time, to really face them on a different level. And by facing them in the Netherlands, so it was really important years there, I knew what it did for my family in a certain way, as indirectly, but also directly. And this is such a wonderful way of being a team player, by really taking extremely good care of yourself.
So you're saying start with yourself, focus on the responsibility you have towards yourself, and that's the biggest and most meaningful contribution.
I think, yes, no doubt about that.
That's very interesting. We could talk for hours, and today I gave this session the opportunity to be more personal and more philosophical, because we are talking about art, and as much as we want to talk about the business of it and the cultural aspects of this, we're reaching a point where whether it's AI or staging, it becomes more and more about the connection we have to ourselves and the authenticity.
It's funny you mention AI, because I also call my coaching, at some point I say I also focus on AI, but I call it artistic intuition.
Which is the one thing that I think AI won't be able to copy.
No, exactly.
So,
but that's what we need as a balance in the world, and with all what we have in social media, this whole new way of being very lonely, but yet so much connected.
Isolated and connected over information instead of empathy and true connection.
Yes.
It's we did a study for young people going to clubs in München, and we realized that people are really lonely and have hard time socializing, and it's crazy how club culture has become an incubator for people getting to connect again and learn social norms and how you operate under pressure and under social pressure. So I think the art community is also under a certain permanent audition on social media, and you have to be successful even with every post and everything you do. It's society of spectacle in the end. It's in a new way. It's just that now we all have to pretend as if everything's perfect all the time.
I love this aspect. I mean, I think it brings me back to my uncle, because it was very simple, but it was a very honest entertainment. And I would also love for arts to not shy away from that, because a lot of the modern content I face nowadays is so heavy also, and it's all about death and war and such, and we need these stories as well. But I also would love, I love to keep it light sometimes as well. Maybe, to stay away from my pattern, obviously. But this side I would also encourage. But I also see the real meaning of art. I find, as well as you mentioned, the other form of religion. That's for me, and this kind of tribal and ritual. I think we need to find a new form of ritual in a certain way, which connects us to something very old, and to stimulate the healing as collective,
I think it's the example I use to build up on what you said is you can watch a movie at home and you can watch a movie with 60 people being around you in a cinema. It's not the same thing.
No.
And there is something about collective experience. And as much as we are individualistic and we're promoting ourselves here, but in the end, this is exactly like what we said about the artist in the spotlight. It's about whether you have a communal experience and whether you connect with the people around you. Yeah. And people feel lonely, and you can have the library of the world on your smartphone of information, but what we need is connection.
Sure. If you read, what is it, one of the last words and thoughts of dying people, it's not about so much about work. Yes, most of the time they say, I wished I would have worked less. And it's really the main focus is about family and love and connection and being the togetherness. That's what really stays.
I've seen it on the internet multiple times, so I cannot quote it as scientific, but they say the biggest predictor about your health, even above nutrition, is the quality of the people you surround yourself with, that we basically live and die based on the interaction we have with others. And artistic ensembles are a form of utopia in the way that they try to show what it could be for a night on stage. And it can't be a perfect society like everybody would want. Utopias radically fail. But it's about focusing on creating a collective experience that gives us collective hope about how we progress. And that's a very practical way of thinking, and not some philosophical thought. It's very practical. We live as a community.
Yeah.
And the arts, in my view, are very important in sustaining that. Thank you. Thank you for coming today. It was very important for me to provide people some insight on how auditions work, on how the business administration side works, that everything is not simply this big conspiracy that's not transparent, but it's a very complicated process. And I hope young people, young singers, or people working in the arts take your thoughts and try to reflect on their own process, whether it's singing or creating or doing business administration with the spirit of authenticity and holistic. In the end, it's a lot about empathy, isn't it?
Yeah. And having fun. For me, it's really also, I find like sometimes it's getting so heavy and we're so much in our minds, and I feel like, look, nobody knows, but I guess we're spending just one life on this planet, and let's have fun also, a good time. That's comes back to what you said. This isn't what I call network, but the people and the quality of the connections you have. Watch out and feed that, and expect the highest from that side, I think, and invest, and don't take shitty things. Stay away from that.
Like you said, let's keep it lightly.
Yes, let's keep it light.
Josef, thank you very much. We'll see each other in the future again, and I hope the people you work with find their own voices, either creatively or literally.
Wonderful.
And this ends the session. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.